Hello, this modal meetup between Vincent Persichetti and Joseph Schillinger is about the use of modal harmony derived from 7-pitch diatonic scales. Working with root movement principles and specific chord types, I will create an example with a melodic and harmonic continuity. The result will sound like late Renaissance period music. The source material for our journey is the set of modes derived from the 7-pitch diatonic scale, here C major. Through circular pitch permutation we obtain the 7 modes, each starting on a different degree of the original scale. We see the 3 major modes Ionian, Lydian and Mixolydian, and the 3 minor modes Dorian, Phrygian and Aeolian or natural minor. The final mode, the Locrian scale, is seldomly used for music composition. Recently, I reread the wonderful book 20th Century Harmony by the American composer Vincent Persichetti. This book contains a wealth of ideas and techniques, all illustrated with brief score examples. In the book, there is a chapter called Scale Materials. This chapter discusses modal scales and it has a most useful approach to modal harmony. I will illustrate this approach using the minor modes on the tonic E, as shown here. The natural minor mode is the E Aeolian in the center. It contains a minor third and lowered 6th and 7th degree. The 2 related minor modes are created by altering a characteristic scale step. Lowering the supertonic degree from F sharp to F natural yields the Phrygian mode. Raising the 6th degree from C natural to C sharp, we get the Dorian mode with the characteristic major 6th. From left to right, we move from the most minor to the least minor mode, so to speak. Let's listen to these 3 modes in succession. Next, I want to demonstrate similarities between the Persichetti book and the earlier Schillinger system of musical composition. Volume 1 of this system has an unconventional description and approach to diatonic harmony, including modal chords. Diatonic harmony in the Schillinger system is created by using the first expansion E1 of 7-pitch diatonic scales. This leads to chords in thirds, as shown here for the C major scale. We see 7 triads notated as chord structures S5 in close position. Each triad contains the chordal functions root or 1, 3rd and 5th. On my channel there is a video explaining this notation in quite some detail. The next step is to write the set of triads in E1 expansion for the 3 minor modes on the tonic E. That is shown here. Persichetti introduces a great and most useful concept: categorization of these chords as either primary or secondary. I've used colored labels and characters P and S in the diagram. Normally, we find the primary triads on the tonic, subdominant and dominant degree, as shown in the center for the Aeolian mode. We see the 3 minor chords on the root E, A and B. For the other minor modes, the 3 primary chords are the triad on the tonic degree and 2 others that contain the characteristic scale step. For example, for the Phrygian mode, this yields the minor triad on the tonic E minor, plus the major triad on F that contains the characteristic lowered 2nd degree F natural as the root, and the D minor triad on the 7th degree with F natural as the 3rd. Each scale also contains a diminished triad with a tritone interval between root and chordal function 5. This triad is best avoided because of harmonic implications shown later. Therefore, it is labeled as A, avoid. For instance, see the red color at the C-sharp diminished triad for the E Dorian scale. This leaves us with 3 secondary triads on the other scale steps. With controlled use of primary and secondary triads, we may create tension and stability curves in a modal chord progression, as I will demonstrate later. There is a similar process for the 3 major modes. A chord progression implies root movement from one chord to the next. Here we find a nice commonality between Persichetti and Schillinger, when the former writes, "Triadic materials within a scale may be set in motion by relationships other than that of the fifth." He is encouraging a freer use of root movement with less insistence on root leaps to the fifth below, as is the case in the 5-1 dominant tonic cadence. This nicely corresponds to the Schillinger concept of root cycles, derived from the scale expansion type. For chords in thirds, the E1 expansion, this leads to 6 root cycles, 3 positive and 3 negative, as shown here. The 3 positive cycles are R3, R5 and R7, with the root descending by a third, a fifth or a seventh respectively. The latter is equivalent to an ascending scalar step. Negative root cycles imply leaps in the opposite direction. Again, I refer to my other videos for a more in-depth discussion of the root cycle concept. A deliberate choice for either stable positive cycles or more floating chord progressions with negative root cycles is another degree of freedom in creating modal harmony. So, with the primary and secondary chord type and the root cycle concept, we may start to write modal chord progressions. Here we see a brief and simple example in the E Dorian mode using primary triads only. The 4-chord progression uses 1 positive and 2 negative root cycles and closes with a plagal 4-1 cadence. There is 1 chord inversion. In this 4-part setting, we aim for stepwise voice leading in the upper parts. Note the contrary opening and closing motion, and let's listen to this progression. Here's a somewhat longer chord progression using primary triads only, in the E Phrygian mode. Now we have more positive than negative root cycles, and we close with an R7 root movement in a typical modal closing cadence. This progression contains many inverted chords. In first inversion chords, with the third in the bass, we avoid doubling the 3 in the upper parts. I use stepwise motion in the bass for the second inversion of the chord D minor with A in the bass. The voice leading at the end has a weakness. There is oblique parallel motion into the interval of a perfect fifth, with the upper voice leaping while the bass descends stepwise. Next, we proceed with a mix of primary and secondary triads. This example, in the E Aeolian mode, has a majority of positive root cycles and closes with a 5-1 dominant to tonic cadence in minor. Again, note the use of inverted triads and the stepwise resolution of the 6/4 second inversion chord G with D in the bass. Here's another example mixing primary and secondary chords, now in E Dorian. In this example, there are more negative than positive root cycles. The progression closes with a plagal cadence. Measure 4 illustrates a technique for improved and more controlled voice leading. The swapping of neighboring chordal functions, here 1 and 3. This may be done between measures or within the measure. It is used in this example to move from open to closed position voicing in the upper parts. Also, this technique is demonstrated in my other videos, but may require a separate episode to show its full potential. Remember the fact that each scale contains a diminished triad that is best avoided for its tritone interval. Let's study that problem in more detail now. Here we see a short example in E Phrygian, closing with a 5/1 cadence. The triad on the 5th degree is B diminished. The chordal function 5, the F natural, creates a tritone interval that will resolve by stepwise descending into the pitch E. Note that the closing E minor chord is incomplete, with the 3 omitted. However, what we are orally experiencing is the leading tone triad character of this diminished chord. It is implying, more or less forcing a resolution into the tonic chord C major, as shown here. The leading tone B resolves upward into the tonic C, the flat 5, F natural, descends stepwise into the E, the third of the incomplete C chord. So the tendency is to move away from E minor and modulate into the equivalent and related C major key. It is this strong leading tone character and the more or less inevitable resolution that requires avoidance or, at the least, careful handling of the diminished triad. The solution to this problem lies in modifying the diminished triad by altering a pitch. Looking at the B diminished triad, there are two options. We turn this chord into a minor triad by raising the 5th from F to F sharp. Or alternatively, we change it into a major triad by lowering the root B into B flat. Note that these alterations require correct voice leading when used in the chord progression. The F sharp will ascend into the next higher scalar pitch G. The B flat descends stepwise into the pitch A. And that is how we may use the modified version of the problematic diminished chord. However, we have to carefully control the voice leading from and into the surrounding chords. In case of poor handling, there may be cross relations and parts moving in the wrong direction, as this example in E Aeolian demonstrates. In measure 3, the F sharp diminished triad is modified to an F major chord by lowering the root into F natural. This therefore has to descend. Measure 4 demonstrates the weak voice leading. With a positive root cycle R5, the F leaps into the D, while there is the cross relation with the F sharp in the upper parts, and this also descends into an E. In measure 6 we use the other variant. We raise the chordal function 5 C into C sharp, obtaining a minor chord F sharp minor. But now, the following chord being C major, the altered pitch moves in the wrong direction, descending from C sharp to C natural. So, the two altered versions of the troublesome triad with the tritone offer a solution, but at the same time they yield restrictions in the chord progression. Correct voice leading will require more attention than before. Here we have an example that demonstrates proper use of the modified versions of the tritone chord. In the key of E Dorian in measure 3, we lower the major sixth from C sharp to C natural. We obtain the C major triad and the pitch C descends stepwise. In measure 6, we raise the fifth. The G becomes a G sharp and we have a minor triad. The altered pitch ascends stepwise. So, we now have a correct handling of the alternative chords. Unfortunately, the example has a weak voice leading spot in the closing measures. Now it's time to create a longer example with a melodic and harmonic continuity based on modal minor scales. The rhythm of the melody is based on the Schillinger rhythm technique, which is called an expanding adjacent group. At the source lie patterns created by non-uniform binary synchronization. Two clocks or metronomes ticking at different time intervals. Here we use the time intervals of 3 and 4 time units. Details may be found in my book on the Schillinger theory of rhythm. The rhythm is written as a mathematical number series, the attack duration series for the expanding group shown here. The time unit T is the quarter note. The series consists of two parts shown also in staff notation at the bottom. This pattern is modified by introducing a split unit group on a longer note and an occasional rest. From this pattern we create a continuity by first using measures 1 plus 2, then 1 plus 2 plus 3, then the measures 2 to 4 and so forth. This yields a total of 23 measures in 3 phrases that have related rhythms and that seem to undergo some form of development. The 3 rhythm phrases are applied to the E minor modes, moving from Phrygian through Aeolian and then to Dorian. The phrases have a local highest pitch and there is an overall melodic curve. The lead part is for trumpet. The modal harmony is played by 2 trombones and a tuba. They play triads in root position and chord inversions. Again, I will use a mix of all triad types, starting with primary chords and gradually injecting secondary triads and the modified diminished chord. Also, there will be some 7th chords as the example progresses. The overall musical idiom is period piece and late Renaissance style. Let's listen to this example while reading the annotated score. This example demonstrates the controlled use of modal harmony and melody while creating a musical continuity. Although there are some style inconsistencies caused by the 7 chords, the many inverted position chords, and occasional awkward voice leading, the example sets a convincing overall mood. Some details might still be improved and corrected. So, combining the approaches to modal harmony from both the Persichetti and Schillinger books, we have seen the generalization of root movement using all 6 root cycles. This creates controlled chord progressions and harmonic cadences. The classification of modal triads as primary or secondary provides a mechanism to stress the characteristic scale steps of each major or minor mode. We saw the handling of the problematic diminished triad through a local modification and pitch alteration. This elegant set of tools enables us to write a musical continuity in a quasi-ancient style. If you're watching my channel for the first time, please subscribe, like and share these videos. And on my website you will find more content and a donation button for supporting my efforts. Thanks for spending your time on watching this movie. Bye bye.